All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us here. We have Chase from On the Table Gaming, Evan, who you know from destroying me in battle reports as of late with the Defenders, and Adam from Blackfire Productions. All three of you guys, and myself to a degree, have a slightly different perspective on what we're talking about today, which is the release schedule, which I believe is in some ways a double-edged sword for Marvel Crisis Protocol. And I'm excited to get your different thoughts as people who are new to the game, people who have gotten just about everything that's come out, and somebody who's been able to stagger what they want to get and what's most important to them and how that feels. So with that, if you guys want to talk a little bit about yourselves and what you're doing, we'll start with Chase.
Oh boy! All right. Well, I think I'm the newest member by far. I'm just getting into Marvel Crisis Protocol, and I'm 100% like in that honeymoon phase where everything is just amazing, and it's like you turn over the card and you're like, what? That's like on the other side. Like what was it, Green Goblin recently? I was like, this is so cool. So I'm just having a blast, and so I'm transitioning over, not entirely, but my main focus is a Song of Ice and Fire, the miniatures game, which is a kind of a tray-based game. And it's been really hard to find like another game that matches well. And Marvel Crisis Protocol is like another game that plays so differently and is just so thematic and awesome. So I'm really excited to be jumping in on this. And thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Evan, you want to talk a little bit about yourself other than the recent Defenders victory?
Sure. Yeah. So I feel like a little bit of the odd man out here because I don't do like any Crisis Protocol content creation, but I'm happy to be on again, and thanks for having me. Yeah, I've been into this game since its release. I first heard about it at Gen Con last year, and as soon as I saw it, I knew I had to get it. So for me, this is my first miniatures game where you've had to actually assemble and paint the pieces. I come from an X-Wing background, so that's basically my experience with miniatures games before this. So I feel like that's maybe gonna contextualize a little bit what I'm going to talk about today in this topic. But yeah, so far loving Crisis Protocol. I would agree that it's I think what we were talking about a little bit before this recording started, that it's just really, really great, tight rule set, and the characters feel great. So yeah, loving it so far.
Awesome. And then we have Adam, who was making Marvel content before Marvel Crisis Protocol was even fully fleshed out back in the days. But tell us a little bit about you and your love of the game.
Yeah, so I found out about this game, again, like a lot of you guys last year, and I had Blackfire Productions already up and running, and I was doing other content for other games like Necromunda and Middle-earth SBG and such. But I've always been a Marvel fan from a very young age. Like, I can remember going up to a provincial campground, stopping by a small town, and going into their magazine stand and finding a 5-pack of the reprint of the Daredevil comics, and that just hooked me from there. And from there, it was like, X-Men 90s movie or 90s cartoon, yeah. But like completely hooked. Saturday mornings was full of like Spider-Man and the X-Men and that. So yeah, as the time went on, that passion just sort of grew and continued, and I still love it. And yeah, as soon as this game, I heard it was coming out, it was for me. Like, I'm a skirmish wargamer fan, so I love the small scale, and I love diving into like a single model. It's better for painting that way, that I can just focus on that instead of like mass army building. But yeah, no, it's the theme. It's like the lore behind the game and everything else. It's just it's what drew me in. As soon as I saw Marvel, and I knew there was going to be X-Men, and I knew there's going to be like Ghost Rider and Punisher, everything sold, I'm done, and I'm in, and I dove in, and I haven't looked back yet. Still loving that game, still in that honeymoon phase. It's fantastic. So
A good place to be, and we're almost a full year into it, so not a bad year. All right, guys, so we're talking about the release schedule. Pretty much since the release of the game, Atomic Mass has been releasing 2 to 4 releases a month. Most of these are somewhere priced between $25 to $40, some a little bit more expensive, some a little bit less, but most of them in that price range. With 2 to 4 releases a month, in your opinion, is that too many? And I will let whoever wants to pick it up first take it away.
All right, I'll jump in. 2 to 4 releases a month, I think, actually isn't overly bad in the grand scheme of things. Like there's other companies out there that release way more stuff in a week. You can look at GW. You see some of their mainline stuff, and it's way more stuff and way more expensive for one box of items. You know what I mean? So I find myself, it's a reasonable, amount of releases in a month. 2 to 4 isn't bad. It's not too unreasonably priced. Yeah, I'll say that it's good. It's good. That's, and like, that it's every second Tuesday of the month that that the items are coming out, so you can sort of plan how you need to plan and get yourself situated so what you're going to want to buy, and you don't have to buy them all, but you can, right? So
Yep, absolutely. And Adam, you here are our kind of resident, has everything that you can get your hands on. I try, but sometimes up here in the north, things don't like to get shipped up here. Like I still haven't seen the Ant-Man and Doctor Strange boxes yet. I got Ghost Rider, but I haven't seen the other two, so I haven't been able to play Defenders yet, and I'm jonesing to do that. So they're good.
Yeah.
Take it from the other side of the table experience.
I hear you got spanked by them. Is that what it was?
Man, it's a quick battle report. You can watch it in like 20 minutes.
I'll be checking it out.
Evan, what about you, man? What is your opinion on it?
Yeah, so I think, like I said, the X-Wing background, I think for me, I would say it's maybe a little too much in my opinion. And I don't know. I don't think it's too bad. But I just feel like, from not even just from a money standpoint, but from a time standpoint of assembling and painting and stuff like that, and then getting to play with them. Like, for example, I was really excited about the Web Warriors because they were delayed for so long and all of that. And so when CP10 finally came out, I was super excited. I put them together. I painted them. I was pretty happy with my paint jobs and everything. And I think I've used them one time each, basically. And then the Defenders came out, and it was the next shiny thing that I just had to try. So for me, I think from that aspect, it's a little much. Because it doesn't give me time to really appreciate these characters that I've put work into and spent all this time anticipating. That said, I'm not going to complain too much about it because it's fun to assemble them, and it's fun to paint them, and it's fun to learn new stuff and learn the new strategies. So, if they slowed it down a little bit, I wouldn't be upset. But if they kept it up, I'll just keep buying them.
Fair enough. And Chase, as our
as the newbie, I'm coming in like everything is new and shiny.
Yep, you've got 40 plus characters that have come out in the game already. Not even hitting that 1 year mark.
Oh man, I know.
And what is your perspective on it?
So yeah, first off, I think it's amazing just how clear and concise like the delivery timeline is. Like, it seems like Atomic Mass Games is great about, letting you know what's coming up and when it's going to get out there, and ideally when it's going to be shipping, even when we've had such, atypical times. For me, what I'm trying to figure out is, like, where does the game still sort of like, where has it landed yet? Like, so, in the beginning of a game, it's like you're rushing to kind of get to this like critical mass position where you want to have the game feel like full, but not finished. And so I'm still trying to like piece together all those things, and it's like, what does critical mass look like in Marvel Crisis Protocol? Like, is it X number of affiliations? Coming from A Song of Ice and Fire, in the beginning, it's, I think we're 2 years out now, and now they're going and switching to quarterly releases. Mm-hmm. And so it's going to be just one big dump, and when a new faction comes out, they're going to release a whole bunch of units for it, and then you're going to have to wait for a whole another quarter to have anything else come out, because it's already in a spot where there's like set armies. And now there's kind of sprinkling things on top. And I'm still trying to like kind of wade through the affiliation thing, being like, okay, do you need to get, there's a game already there? Like right now, it seems like there's so much, but are there X number of affiliations that it really needs to get to, or that it wants to get to be in that kind of like critical mass place? And so I think it kind of makes sense to be dropping so much stuff. Kind of the pros and cons. As a new player coming in, it's hard for me to kind of wrap my head around, because I go down there to the store and it's like, okay, like these characters are so cool. Like, what do I need to play? Like, I'm used to like, here's my army and I can only buy these things. And people are like, you can get anything. And I'm like, I can get Venom? And they're like, I don't want to play bad guys though. And they're like, oh no, you can have bad guys. It's like, okay. And like, so it's just like a kid in the candy store. So there's a sort of like a layer of confusion that I'm sort of in. That's like just, euphoria at the same time. And I just wonder going forward, is this something that will be sustainable long term? Maybe with the affiliation system, it totally is, but there's so many combinations you can make. It almost, maybe doesn't seem necessary. Like, because if you add 2 characters a month, you could have so many different variations and ways to play them in affiliation, out of affiliation, that could be fine. For me, maybe it comes down more to, I think what, Adam was talking about with maybe, or even hinting at with like price too. It's like, is it, it's maybe less the number of releases and more like how much it costs. And if it's like $100 a month, like, yeah, maybe. If it's like $200 a month, like a big thing, it's like, nah, I don't know about that. So
that was going to be in my next question, dude.
Okay.
Or the next answer. So completely, I just cut myself off
like,
beforehand.
there we go. Yeah. Well, that's a segue then. We'll get
and with that, let's talk about a little bit about the pros and cons. For me, because we've seen so many other different styles of releases from other great miniatures games. GW, well known as one of the biggest companies out there, that, as Adam already mentioned, quarterly releases, or not even quarterly, weekly releases, which is crazy. But there's so many different products that they're pushing out that some armies, some games haven't even seen a new release in the past half a year or even years, plural. And then there's some games like Star Wars Legion, well, they'll come out every other month for a faction and all that kind of stuff. So there's just so many different ways. Adam, well, I guess we'll go back to you to start. What are some of the pros and cons of how Atomic Mass Games has scheduled the release?
Well, I know for me, like I said, I touch base. I sort of well, let me be quite frank. My wife gives me a budget every 2 weeks. You know what I mean? When you have 3 kids and a family, and that, I have a very considerate wife that I love very much. It doesn't help that she's sitting up behind me upstairs and has heard everything. But yeah, so like I'm going to call it an allowance. Let's just call it what it is, I guess, right? And so like I know how much money I have to save leading up to release week for the items that I want to get. And I don't have to get all of them, but who am I kidding? I will. But like at least I can plan ahead, and that's what I like. I know what's coming out. They have like a 2 to 4 items, and most times like the 4th item, I usually find it's like 3 packs of models, and then like the 4th item is either like terrain or a mat or something like that. At least that's what I've seen so far. And so like really it's only like for me, if I'm paying retail like $150, you know what I mean? And so like I can save that up, and it's nice over the course of the month. If I don't, for whatever reason, save up the money and I can't get these items, so this is where one of the cons come into play. There's been times where things have went out of stock because I haven't picked it right off the bat for whatever reason, and so then I have to wait until it comes back in stock. Which there's been times like Venom has been out of stock in stores around here for a long time. I picked them right off the bat, but I know some friends that have been dying to find them and they can't because they haven't been able to get it back in stock. So like, if you don't get it right off the bat, the chances of getting the hot items are a little bit harder to get. So you just sort of got to plan ahead. So I guess pros wise, I'm looking at, for me personally, they're sizable but manageable as long as I have that time and I know what's coming and I make those plans. The cons is that if for some reason, you're dropping $200 or whatever and you don't have that money, you might not be able to get that item right off the bat. And I'm not a huge, like I can play competitively. I've played in competitive tournaments and that. And so for those people that sort of need to have the new items, and everything, that could affect how they look at something. But for me, like if I have to wait, I have to wait. Key point is Doctor Strange box with Wong and Ant-Man and Wasp. It's been a couple of weeks since you guys have got them down in the States, correct?
I believe so. I just got mine in the mail as birthday presents, but
oh, nice.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, happy birthday, dude. So like I've had to wait for that, but that's okay. It's part and parcel. You know what I mean? Things happen. I'm not losing sleep over it. It's not the end of the world. I still have lots of other toys, as Evan was saying, that I don't get to use all that much. And so it's nice to sort of have that time to wait, also to be able to use those items too. So it's good and bad in that. So.
Yep. Evan, you kind of gave us a really good point already. If you want to expand further on that, or just kind of go into your pros and cons, I would love to hear it.
Yeah, so I mean, I think what I said earlier was I guess a con. So I'm going to give kind of the flip side of that with a pro, and I think the flip side is for me, it keeps the game so fresh with how much they come out with characters, and it keeps, I guess, the meta. You just had your video about competitive versus casual, and maybe we won't get into that right now, but I mean, regardless, there's still kind of this idea of what cards are good, even from a casual standpoint, or what factions are good. And so I feel like it really shakes it up. I mean, and I think AMG does a really good job of balancing that too, because they almost, with the way that they release stuff, they almost have things going a bit of a cyclical pattern to where, maybe this month the Avengers are really good because they kind of counter the new stuff that comes out that people want to play. And so then it's like there's kind of this interplay between the Avengers and, whatever X faction. But then the next month the Defenders came out, and the Defenders are really good against the Avengers. So like there's this back and forth, and I really enjoy that. It keeps it fresh. It keeps it interesting. Like I said, I'm coming from X-Wing where they do it in waves. Things can get stagnant between waves, and it just, I don't know, especially in the competitive scene, but even in the less competitive scene, it's just like, oh, I'm seeing, a 4 X-Wing list again for the 5th time in the last 2 weeks. It gets kind of boring. So I feel like the release schedule coupled with the rules and the roster, the flexibility and everything really makes this game have so many more possibilities and so much more just flexibility that way. So that would be my biggest pro. And then con, I kind of already touched on, it's hard to keep up. But I guess it's kind of like Adam was saying, you kind of can pick and choose what you want, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I feel like I'm not ever in a point in this game where it's like, I got to buy a pack for a card, or I got to buy a pack for a character. Like, again, X-Wing, there's notoriously, especially first edition ships that you just bought for a card. You bought a $15-$20 ship for a single card.
That's some
Auto
Star
thrusters,
Viper
I think, was
yeah,
one of the big ones.
Yep, the Star Viper for auto thrusters, 100%. Yep. But anyway, I don't feel like I have to do that. And I think we're at what, 40, 41 characters now, and I personally have 33 of them. I never bought MODOK from the first wave or whatever. I don't have any of the Black Order yet. I want to eventually, but I think that's just kind of the nature of it, is that you can kind of pick and choose and you'll still be fine. So overall, I see more pros to it than cons.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very true.
And Chase, I know, again, you're a little bit new to
Yeah.
this, so it's all
Well,
brand
it's-
new, shiny rainbows
Yeah.
and everything else.
Well, it's great for building community too. There's it's such a huge, the IP is just like endless, and it's not that there's so many characters. There's just so many characters that people are like strongly attached to, and it's like weird. You get these like you can tell when someone was how old someone is, or like what era of is like, oh, like X-Men, Venom, like, okay, like I'm gonna put you in this age group. Just for me, the constantly catching people's attention. I think one of the pros of this, so much stuff coming out. As I started to talk to some of my friends about it, just so happens I wasn't really big into Daredevil, and one of my buddies is just entirely like all about that. And it's like, well, guess what? Like this month is like Nirvana for you. You just get all this cool stuff is coming out. And I think that cycle is going to be really great for just expanding the IP, especially with, I know it's, not necessarily licensed for movies, but, as there's more sort of adjacent content, this can kind of be matching that. And I think it's going to be great for building out the community. Content creation, it's amazing too, being like, wow, like, 3 to 4 things is like, that's like a video a week. And like, that matches up well. So I think just the level of excitement it's going to generate is amazing. I think some of the cons, coming in, it's part of adjusting to the game, just realizing that there's so much stuff and I can get it all is kind of scary, where, it's like, I just get to pick like the red team or the blue team. That's like a kind of a nicer limiting factor. And I know there's affiliations, but you can run things outside of affiliation too. So with there being so much stuff, it's sort of different in that, most games, a year in, you don't have, 43 different combinations of things. Like, that's insane. That's so much content. And, and they're detailed too. Like there's backs and fronts and there's multiple abilities. And so that can be maybe a little bit overwhelming. And I do wonder, what does what does this game look like going forward for someone coming in? Is there like, possibilities of starter sets that are just X-Men or something, or ways to kind of simplify it, affiliation pack that you buy? I don't know. But the other thing is I wonder about like kind of the paradox of choice when there's so much stuff coming out, and if you can't get everything, does sometimes it tend to like pull the focus towards the negative of like the missed opportunities, or it's like, oh, I couldn't get that, I didn't get that, versus when there's only like one thing and you got the new hotness, you're like, yeah, this is it, like so excited. When you're getting 2 out of 4 for whatever reasons, like does that have like a weird psychological effect that maybe leads you to maybe think of the negatives? I don't know.
Yeah, that's a fair point, and I'm really glad you brought up because we have this ramped up release schedule. One of the big pros, to me at least, is we're getting to see so many additional characters quickly hit the table, and we're getting people who are like, "Oh man, I'm not gonna play until the X-Men come out." Well, like, it only took a year, and we got like another 7 or 8 affiliations in between the Avengers and Cabal to when the X-Men come out. And so that only, like, they're just ramping through so much content. If you have a niche fan favorite character, for me, Agent Venom all day. I've got action figure, pop, all that kind of stuff over there in the other corner of this room. It gives there a significant chance of those kind of characters being able to get into this game, which is a really cool thing. But then also, as kind of all of you kind of touched on, there is kind of a daunting prospect to how much has been coming out, and one of the how do I want to phrase it? Had it all lined up too, and then I started talking. So there'll be a random cut somewhere in the middle of this video.
Nobody move.
All right, stay very, very. Dadgummit. Yes. One of the cons that kind of can naturally come with a game that there's just so many different things to collect is the inner collector in a lot of us comes out, where if we tilt my camera to the right or left here, you will see way too many different board games and expansions, a lot of which have only been played once or twice, because the collector in me wanted to have that game on the shelf for when I wanted to play it. In Marvel Crisis Protocol, granted, part of it is content creator. I want to make sure I'm able to cover everything and all that kind of stuff. But there's definitely a part of the collector side of me that wants to make sure I get every last piece of it, not because it's going to necessarily be played on the table, but because I want it to look cool on the shelf, which I feel like is something that is by no means Atomic Mass Games' fault or anything like that. It's just a little bit of an inner demon we have to face.
Inner nerd coming out.
A little bit of that too.
Right? Yeah, I know all about it, man. I'm right into the collecting myself, and I don't do anything else. You know what I mean? Like it's my hobby, whether it's collecting miniatures, which we all love and we've all been involved in, or I with action figures and stuff like that too. Like I do a bit of toy photography, and it's just been, how far down the rabbit hole do I want to go? You know, when is enough enough? And I haven't found that point yet. My wife might say otherwise, but I haven't. So, but yeah, it's just, you gotta, like, at the end of the day, you gotta know your limits, right, and play within it. So,
yep.
So, and that's the big thing. And yeah, have fun when you're doing it. It's all about having fun. Like, it's a game at the end of the day. Enjoy it while you can. Pick the characters that you want. If you can't get everything, pick the characters that you want to get and have fun, right? So they're there to be bought, and they'll be around hopefully for a while. You know, you might have to wait a little bit, but they will come back in stock eventually. So just enjoy your time and go from there. After all, it's community, it's a hobby, and that's really what this is all about, you know. And I think so far from what I've seen on the internet and everything else, that this game and Atomic Mass Games has really brought out a good community of people for it and surrounding it. So
I 100% agree, and also agree with that sentiment of, at the end of the day, we don't need everything. There might be that want, but with their amped up release schedule, there are a lot more pros that seem to outweigh the cons ultimately.
Yeah.
Though I will let you all play developer or business manager for a quick second with my last question. If you could change one thing about the release schedule, what would it be? And I know you can't, but if you could change one thing about the release schedule, what would it be? And I know you can't, but if you could change one thing about the release schedule, what would it be? what would you change at this point? Evan, I don't think I've let you start off before, so have at it.
All right. You know, I don't know that I would change a whole lot. I would maybe slow it down just a little bit to maybe 2 packs a month, I guess. I don't know. I feel that's a little bit arbitrary. It depends because like for example, with the X-Men coming out, I wouldn't really want them to split that up into 2 months of 2 or whatever, 2 months of, yeah, whatever it would be.
Mhm.
I maybe they will. I guess we don't know for sure, but I'm assuming that all of those packs are going to come out in one wave, and that's the way I would want it because I want to get all of those, and I'll want to play them all together. But you know, maybe in general, like I could have done with just some of the defenders this month and just, you know, whatever. But I'm not going to complain too much about it. I think, you know, Chase brought up an interesting point. Maybe I'm stealing your talking point here, but I wouldn't mind seeing packs at some point of, you know, maybe like, I know there's a big discussion for the X-Men, where they do a second core box or a X-Men starter set. And I think Nate, you and I have had this conversation before, but I think that I'm still on the side that I think that would have been a good idea. I'm not mad about it. I would have bought the set if they would have done it. I'm going to buy the packs the way it is. But I think, you know, to your point you said earlier, Nate, about other people saying, I'm going to wait till X-Men come out to jump into the game. If they could jump in with a core set that comes with all the dice and everything, so they don't have to buy the existing core set or piecemeal all the other stuff you need, I think that would be a huge selling point. So I think maybe that's one thing I would change is packs like that. And not all the time, but just for big releases like that.
That's fair. Adam, what about you?
Ooh, I'm okay with the release schedule and how it's working right now. I've been managing it, but the one sort of downside that has became evident, I don't even want to really say it's a downside. It's just something that needs tweaking within the company itself, and it's not so much to do with AMG, I don't think, as more the distributors, and that's the consistency. So like I've had issues where I haven't, for whatever reason, and I'm not going to complain about it, I haven't been able to receive these items I've pre-ordered. And then you go across the ocean over to the UK and you see that somehow they get something that's released last Friday that is now, you know, not supposed to be until Q1 of 2021. And so like, I'm fine with how the schedule is, but they just make it so it's sort of like it comes out across the board evenly. You know what I mean? So, you know, if it's like, okay, this is the day that's happening, this is it. We are set. Items are shipped to everywhere that they need to be, what hubs, and they get sent and delivered. And that's the only thing. It's been like, you know, so it's not a huge negative. It's not a big thing. I can wait. I'm a grown man, and these are only toys, right? But yeah, it's just, that's the only thing, is that consistency. Okay, we are ready to launch. Hit the go button. We're live. You know what I mean, or whatever. But it's like, yeah, with Doctor Strange, with Angela, and I'm pretty sure up here in Canada, I think it was Thanos was another one that I was waiting on for a while too. There was another release where we sort of have fallen behind, and so that's just my opinion, is just that consistency to get it across the board. And I know it's a massive organization, and there's a lot of sort of cogs in that wheel, so I don't know, but that's, yeah, consistency.
I'm sure there are plenty of angry emails being sent to the UK from Asmodee or something right now, because I know that's not something intended, but
No.
But it has happened, and it's
right.
it sometimes can definitely be frustrating to be on the other side of it. I know COVID saw Australia get a lot of releases before here in the US, and that's just kind of what ended up happening. And hey, I now have all those cool little toys anyway, and again, as you have said very nicely, they are little plastic men. Chase, play developer or distributor or whatever.
Developer, distributor. Well, I mean, I think both of you, Evan and Adam, really hit it. I think consistency is always key, and then you know, it would be cool to, you know, anything that eases in new players. I think the game. So I played originally like the early demos. And I've talked with some of my podcasts, but like did not have a great early demo game with someone that didn't really have like the enthusiasm. And so I kind of passed it by. And then when I came back and played the game again, I was like, wait, like this game was amazing, and I didn't like. It was like I got to play turn 2, one turn, starting at turn 2 at like an event hall, and it was just like okay. And now it's like this game's amazing, and so anything that helps get more new players in, that's like new player friendly. I mean, the starter set is amazing. The core set, it's scarily built. Is like you get 10 characters, you get a whole full roster, and like you can be done. Spoiler, you don't end up being done because you can get so much more. But as far as distribution, things that make it easier, and then as I'm trying to get into it, I'm playing super casually. I'm just having a blast. If I did want to play competitively, it does seem a little daunting to keep up on 2 or no, not 2. It seems fine. 4 would be a lot. So maybe easing it back 1, but I get it. I'm still learning the ropes, and I'm sure people that are already fluent in the system and fluent in the way things interact and the mechanics and the sorts of patterns you see in character abilities, that's probably a lot easier. But I'm just kind of thinking about how do I build this up, and then as a new person to it, how to build up my local community that's also new. Those sorts of things can maybe ease that a little bit, but don't slow down the game. The game, progress is going forward. We're getting lots of stuff. That's awesome. But, there are always things that might make it a little easier for a small community.
Yeah, no. My thing that I would change is I don't necessarily need there to be a set amount of releases per month. Evan kind of hinted at like kind of that, but it doesn't really need to be that. I would just like to see alternating maybe a 2-pack or 2 packs one month and 3 packs the next month. Because like Adam, I am on a budget that has been very gracious given to me. I call it my fun money budget. And there are other things in life that I enjoy playing and doing. The Avengers video game's been cool, stuff like that. But there's so much of it that I've had to dedicate into this game, selling off some older games, which is fine. I need to do that anyway. But it has kept me on my toes. So I wouldn't mind seeing, okay, cool, we'll have 2 packs this month, and then the next month we'll have 3 packs, and then go back to 2 packs, because if it lines up that we get all of the X-Men in November, we'll have had 3 packs in September, 3 packs, not including the additional like construction kit in October, and then 4 packs in November. Can be hard on the wallet, to say the least.
What if they even like divided it up like every 2 weeks type thing? You know what I mean? So the second week in the month, they do 2 boxes. They give a little bit of reprieve, and then 2 weeks later, like what about then they do the 3rd box or the 3rd box and the terrain? So that way, for the people that might find it daunting but want everything, they can sort of budget that much more, or I guess they can sort of manage it that much more than just buying them all at once. So, just
yeah, no, I like it. And again, thank you all for joining me. Most of you have all sorts of different cool projects that you are contributing to. Evan, I'll wrap you into mine. You've been on for so many things at this point. Chase, tell us a little bit about where people can find you and all that.
So you can find me at onthetablegaming.com, and I've got a YouTube channel and a podcast. And we've been, for the past maybe 3 years, maybe coming up on that, we've been mostly focusing on A Song of Ice and Fire from the Kickstarter on up. But I love miniature gaming and wargaming, and my other passion is trying to sort of self-teach myself how to do video effects, like Adobe After Effects and things like that. And so Marvel Crisis Protocol is that kind of sweet spot where I get to do cool like comic book effects in videos. So check out our channel. We only have 2 Marvel Crisis Protocol videos so far, but I've been working on a Spider-Man, a Miles Morales, and Ghost Spider in the style of the Into the Spider-Verse with like cool graphics. So check for that coming out next week. And I'm just having fun watching all you guys because your content is amazing. So I'm excited to be jumping in on this game. And it's like I said, so far the community's been like a crazy cool one because it's got like competitive elements, but the casual element, and everybody gets along, and it seems like they're all cool with that. And not every community is like that. And I know there's some differences of opinions on things, but like overall the community is like just fans at all the levels. And that's just like this cool feeling. So that's really fun to just see. So yeah.
Absolutely.
And I'll touch on that if you're all right with that.
Yeah, by all means.
So, and with that said, you like that the fact that fans, which we all are, can get together, whether you're competitive or a thematic fun player, and you still have a game, and the game is still close. You can be super competitive and have like the best models going, and you can run a standard list and still have a very close, fun, tight game. And that there, I think, just shows the rule set that Atomic Mass Games has made, you know what I mean? And how well balanced and forethought that they've put into it. So that's just my 50 cents about that, or 5 cents about that. So
One of you has to send me like a Hulk guide, though, because you can't just run them down the table. I think we said that before. So I got to work on some. Maybe I need strategy. Maybe that's right. But that's Hulk. Like,
yeah.
But
that's when I see Hulk, that's what I think. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
And just have him smash. But
I don't need these other scrubs on the table. Just like, here we go.
He's played like a scalpel almost. You know what I mean? Like precise. But he does smash when you want him to.
I'll work on that being precise.
Yeah.
Precise Hulk. The 2 lines just I don't.
No.
Anyway, Adam, tell us a little bit more about what you've been doing.
Yeah, so mostly Marvel Crisis Protocol. I've been getting together in this times with a small group of people to do some battle reports, stuff like that. I work full time. I have my kids and my wife and that, and so like I juggle all of that. And I have a very considerate wife, like I said, that she's ran by a couple of times now in the video, trying to sneak by. But yeah, no, it's great because I've been so involved and I want to say absorbed into the game, into the system. It's fantastic. It is my go-to right now, you know what I mean? If I can have a choice to play any game, it is this. Outside of this, as you know, like for Blackfire Productions, I started mostly as a YouTube channel doing videos and that, and this year I sort of been experimenting, which started with the battle reports and stuff. I always do like a neat thumbnail with the videos, and that sort of has led me into doing some like toy photography stuff and stuff like that. So I take action figures and pose them up with lights and effects and everything else, and I do shots with them. So that's between the two. That's really it, man. So that's it. I've been loving it, and I'm looking forward to November and X-Men.
Like, absolutely.
Yeah. So
fingers crossed, knock on wood, all that stuff too.
That's it.
Yeah, no. Every single Wednesday, like clockwork, you will find a new battle report on that channel. And since I may be putting out one a month, I'm happy to send people your way to see more and more games.
Well, I appreciate that. It's really, but a big thank you for that though is to my opponents. You know what I mean? Like if it wasn't for them, because like I live in the country. I live an hour away from any major town, and so like these guys are driving up to me and coming to me. So like Vincent and John and there's been others that are coming out like Sean and as well as Jamie. Like they're the ones that I owe a thank you to, you know what I mean? Because they're my opponents, right? And I get to get games in with them. They're good players, and like, yeah. So if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be able to do what I can do, right? So a big shout out to them.
Thank you, Evan.
Of course.
Yeah, man. And with that, seriously, is there anything you would like to plug, MCP or otherwise? I know you've mentioned doing some podcast stuff in the past.
Yeah. So my friends and I, a couple of friends of mine from high school, we do a small podcast. We've been a little less consistent lately just with everything going on. But yeah, it's a +3 podcast of nerdiness is what it's called. You can find us on like Spotify and all that good stuff. We also have a YouTube channel, but I think we're going to be cutting that. So, but yeah, we talk about, we've kind of changed our format recently. So right now we're kind of picking like a topic, maybe a piece of media, like a book or a comic run or a movie or something to do a deep dive into. So we just did one on Black Panther. So we all rewatched Black Panther and then talked about that. And I think this next one, we've all recently read the Avengers versus X-Men run. So we're going to kind of do a deep dive into that. So yeah, check us out. We have a good time.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you all for joining me today here. And thank you all for watching and again, thank you all for joining me here. And thank you all for watching. And until next time, keep on gaming.